In more ways than one.
Good to see you.
You want to sit in my
I'll
lap?
probably leave you here.
Would you like me to get you a chair?
No, plug it.
Big seats over here if you need them.
That's it, we bring this chair.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our very special service celebrating our 25th anniversary as the Unitarian Universalist West Side congregation. In addition to our current members and friends, we are also welcoming guests from our past. We hope that you will all enjoy the service and find it meaningful. I am Laurel Anderson. I will be co-leading this service with the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt, our consulting minister. Today we extend our thanks to Bram and Roxy Kaspak for our greeters, to Steve Poyani, our videographer, and to Carole Eagleheart, who is our song leader and the person who produced our video. Yay! Celebrating 25 years. Thank you to everyone who contributed to today's service. And thank you also to Dana Sanford, who helped us get the sound system working in here. The Reverend Nancy will now share our announcements with you.
So good morning. This is our 25th anniversary, as Laurel mentioned, which as many of you might know is a silver anniversary. So I hope you are aware and appreciative of the amazing abundance of silver that is in evidence here. It is thematically correct. I will tell you that I am keenly aware that the stole is a symbol of service, but sometimes you serve best by hosting a party. And that's what today is. But I don't usually look like this. However, it's a special occasion. Our announcements for today are these. Our board will meet today at 12:30 in the green room. We'll probably be in the midst of our reception at that point, but that's okay. You can bring cake and whatever in with you so that we can be on with the business of the church, which, as always, is ongoing. And speaking of cake and coffee, at the end of the service, we need you to do a couple of things because everything is happening in this same space. So I will say this again later, but research shows that you have to repeat stuff before human beings can absorb it. So here's go round number one. Following the service, Dane is going to pull a lovely green wagon over in front of those folding doors into which you can all put your hymnals. So they're all in one place and we can get them back into the sanctuary later. Those of you who are physically able, we're asking to fold up your chair and move it and yourself a little bit out of the way and perhaps help a neighbor who might not be able to do this for themselves. And then those of you who are able, in teams of two please, so that nobody overdoes it, we need to pull the tables that are around the perimeter of the room, and I'm guessing we will need to put up this last one as well. Move the tables out, and then you can just sit wherever you'd like with your chair in hand. Coffee will be available over here. We have pumpkin spice and regular half and half as creamer. Oh yes, elegance is us. And the really good news is we have cake. And not only do we have cake that is part yellow and part chocolate, so you could choose, we also have a gluten-free cake. So if you need to keep to a gluten-free diet, please let your cake server know because we will be circulating. Our island is on wheels. So this morning, given the numbers of us and the small space, it seems to make sense for a few of us to bring refreshments to you rather than ask you all to just queue up and serve yourself. So cake will be coming to you, coffee you can get as you would like, and we hope you enjoy the entire experience of being able to chat about our congregation, our history, and our future.
I sinned.
Well, UUs don't do sin, so you're in luck. However, I would remind all of you at this point to check your cell phones and to please silence the ringer or speaker or whatever they may be equipped with that might be disruptive later. We also invite you to sign our Silver Anniversary Rock with your name or your initials using the rainbow marker of your choice. If you came in this door directly to the social hall, you probably saw a rather large rock that has been painted an amazing shade of silver. There are assorted rainbow markers on the table, and we are inviting all of you to simply sign in on the rock. It will be going in our Peace Rock River that goes from this door down to the sanctuary door as a memorial to our 25th anniversary in the Peace River. So if you didn't get a chance to do it as you came in, please take an opportunity to do it later on or on your way out. Is there anything else that needs to be brought to our attention?
Oh,
Sure.
next Tuesday is another Feed the Kids packing event
At 9?
at 9 o'clock.
Okay, so if you'd like to participate in the Rio Rancho Feed the Kids program by putting the backpack units together, they get a wonderful assembly line going. It's an extremely efficient affair. It's kind of amazing to watch. That will be next Tuesday at 9 a.m. here in the green room. Anything else? All right then, I invite you to take your hymnal and open to number 431, which we will read together, O Spinner, Weaver of Our Lives. 431. And customarily we would stand for this, but I'm seeing heads shaking, and you know, that's fine, we'll just remain seated. So if you join me please in our chalice lighting. O Spinner, Weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love to weave new patterns of truth and justice into a web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting. I invite you now to join me in affirming our aspirations. The words are in your program. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. Now, in a moment, Carole is going to lead us in singing hymn number 212, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle. And as we are singing that, Janet Bellamy, who is one of our founding members, will be weaving a silver ribbon into our community loom to mark the event.
Cool.
We know this. Remember Sarah's the one that laughed, right? We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. Sisters, brothers, all. You don't need your hymn books because we're going to make it up as we go along. Dancing here in Rio Rancho. Dancing here in Rio Rancho.
Thank you. I invite you now to join together in a moment of centering. So I invite you to sit back in your seat, to uncross your ankles, your knees, your wrists, to breathe, even though masked, deeply and fully, filling your lungs with air, exhaling completely. Let your mind go blank and focus on the rhythm of your breath, soothing, inspiring, relaxing, releasing, breathing in and breathing out, and in again. And into your mind's eye, let a spiral appear. A spiral that starts in your heart. It embraces you with each turn of its path, encircling you, holding you, drawing you into itself. You are held even as you extend your arms and walk along its length, curving out and around, up and across, an ever-growing path rooted in you. A path you can shape and design as your life calls you to. Notice the points where it connects with other life paths, spiraling and weaving together. Enjoy the peaceful energy that supports you, that connects you with others. Embrace the experience of community as you share your journey. Pause now and look out to your future, to the future of those your community touches. Note the energy waiting to be formed and designed to shape that future. Delight in the hope that brings you. Continuing to breathe slowly and deeply, draw your energy, your spiral, back into your heart. Breathing in and breathing out. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Shalom. What brings us together as a community and deepens our connections to each other are the joys and concerns that we share in our individual lives, in our congregation, and around our planet. So we invite you to share those now. Roxy, do we have any in the basket? Okay, that's fine. Then I will offer the mic in a moment, and we will be lighting a candle for each one. We will begin today with a shared joy that UU Westside will be 25 years old on Wednesday, November 10th. And so we invite these two number candles in honor of that. Who knew this would be the biggest challenge? Okay, and we would also like to take a moment of joy to recognize Veterans Day, which is also approaching on Thursday of this week, and to thank our veterans for their service to our country. Are there other joys and concerns that people would like to share? This will be slightly awkward. I'll get as close as I can and just ask you to pass the mic back and forth. And there's a trick to this.
Yeah.
Dana, should I just use the other mic? Would that reduce?
That'd be faster.
Okay. Then we'll go with that. I saw the back corner. Stacy.
Well, the church turns 25 on Wednesday, and my current Wonder Baby turns 1 on Wednesday. And she may actually reach 14 pounds. For those who don't know my Wonder Baby, she started off life at 2 pounds, 15 ounces in 30 weeks. So she's come a long way. And I actually do have a concern as well. My cousin's oldest son just found out he is deploying to Somalia.
Well, I have a joy. It's a joy to see all these faces here that I haven't seen in a while. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I have a concern. We went to a friend's birthday party last night and did not bring the official church baby today. So I'm concerned that I'm depriving all of you of your presence.
True. Hi, I've been attending since, oh my gosh, 2008, I think, when I came back to Mexico. I'm Lisa Silva, and I've been attending the Albuquerque UU Fellowship in town. And one of our second most senior member, Mandy Pino, fell and broke vertebrae in her lumbar and thoracic areas. She's in rehab now, but she's doing great. She has a wonderful attitude, so that's wonderful. She's only 96. My other sharing is that Sally Fish asked me to please tell everyone she sends her love and wishes she'd be here. She's on her last hunt of the year, Pajarito Mesa.
UU service, hunt.
Hi, I'm Janet, and I just wanted to say that Bill's family, son, daughter-in-law, and 2 granddaughters, all tested positive for COVID. And the 2 adults have been fully vaccinated. So these were breakthrough infections, and fortunately, they're all doing okay. They did have symptoms, however, and but didn't have, to be hospitalized or anything. And Bill's test was negative.
Can you just pass? Oh, there you go.
I have a rather unusual joy. Just the other day, I told my husband Ruben, you need to get back involved again. And he's afraid to go to his church because, So we FaceTime every Saturday night with our dear friends we travel with, Joe and Rosemary. So we're sitting there last night having our dinner. There's a FedEx drop-off. Joe and Rosemary sent Ruben a beautiful, beautiful I don't know what it's even called, a pool stick and a case. So now he's fired up and he's ready to go. That's probably my biggest joy of the year.
Janet, anybody else? Just pass that forward. Donna. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to offer a joy or a concern?
Thank you. I would just like to echo the fact that Carole gave us a call on all these wonderful faces and people that we haven't seen for years. What an occasion. And to feel the warmth of this building, it just feels so good in here. Ann and I thank you a lot.
I can see you guys sitting right next to me.
Anyone or anything else?
We all change.
All right, then we will light one final candle for all that we still hold in the privacy of our own hearts and minds. We light this red candle as a protest against the racial violence and in support of all those who suffer from this injustice. May it call us into action to make our world a just and safe place for all people of all races for all time. Shalom. Now I invite Graham to share our animal ministry moment with you.
This is for all creatures. Blessed are you, creation, maker of all living creatures. On the days of creation, you called fish from the sea, birds in the air, and animals on the land. You inspired St. Francis to call all animals his brothers and sisters. We ask you to bless them all, these animals about us, by the power of love. Enable them to live according to creation. May we be thankful of your beauty in creation. Blessed are all your creatures. Amen. Now this is a little kitty. And the kitty wants to know, why are you screaming? Why are you screaming? What did I do wrong? Why are you crying? How can I make it right? Would you like it in a different color? Would you like it in a different size? Would you like it in a different room? I just wanted to show my love. I just wanted to express my thanks. I just wanted to put the dead mouse on your sheets. But now you are screaming and I don't know how to make you stop.
Our gifts of love and commitment are the foundation of our congregation. Without them, we would not exist. For all that you do, for all that you give, for all the many ways you love and serve this congregation, we thank you.
Choreography is tough. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you. Laurel? People are asked if you'd like, sure, just pick it up back on the table. I'd like to ask you now to turn in your hymnal to number 646. 646. It is a responsive reading.
And you're going to take it all.
Don't worry, the basket will be at the back of the room, or if you miss it the first go around. Due to the pandemic, we'd stopped passing it, but yeah. It's hard to know what the proper precautions actually are and what will make people feel safe and what's superfluous, so it's a learning process. Thank you all so much. Now, if we could join together at 646, I will read the boldface type and ask you to respond with the italics. We clasp the hands of those that go before us,
And the hands of those who come after us.
We enter the little circle of each other's arms,
And the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in dance.
and the larger circle of all creatures,
Passing in and out of life, who also in dance.
to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it.
Except in fragments.
Shalom. Thank you. Now, I know you all came here to see the video. I know, and we're gonna, because I haven't seen it either, and I'm just as excited as you are. The only one who's seen it that I know of in its entirety is Carole. So, But I do have a few things I want to say by way of preparation. I titled this service Roots and Wings for what I expect is probably an obvious reason. So I'd like us to think for a few minutes about roots and wings, about weaving the threads of life into a tapestry of meaningful beauty, about the circles and the spirals and all the various patterns of life that unfold over the course of our days. Most of us will have many of those. Many threads, many patterns, different colors, different textures, different designs. Yet within that difference, design and balance and beauty occur. Sometimes we tend to our roots, expecting them to grow in a predictable pattern, only to discover that what we thought were roots are actually wings unfurling, and we're in free fall. And then we're soaring on one more of the highs of life. These are not rational, logical images. They are images of meaning and purpose, of emotional and spiritual realities. We have them as individuals, and we have them as families, as communities, as chosen and intentional communities and congregations. Westside has been growing both roots and wings for 25 years now. That feels like a very long time, and yet it's also a very short time. Hopes and dreams have been born and lived and died, and then born again as our community adjusts and adapts to the realities of life among us and within us, as well as outside us. Politics and pandemics have demanded huge responses. We are not the original UUWC community as we gather here this morning. If we could convene all of those folks here now, they might be surprised to see how what they started has grown. And that's good, because UUs love novelty, so I hope they'd be really intrigued with where we're at now. For many of us here now, learning about our roots is also a unique experience. It's really important to keep our roots healthy, to be aware of them, and to tend to their needs. It's equally important not to be bound by them. A root-bound plant does not thrive. To thrive, we also need wings to carry us ahead. So as you view the video that Carole has created, with the help of many of you present here now, keep these things in mind. Look for the patterns that Westside has developed. Listen for the roots, and search out the evidence of wings, past and present. I hope you will enjoy the video. I expect that we all will. Many of us had fun helping with it, and this is the best kind of fun. It's fun that connects us together in creative and flexible designs and creates a congregation that continues to grow. So now Carole's going to do some magic with machinery. I'm going to take this and the microphone out of the way and go play with the lights. So humor us for a few seconds while we set this up, and then we can all share the video.
And I've got...
In Rio Rancho, New Mexico, there's a small congregation called Unitarian Universalist Westside. How did it get here? What's it been doing through the years? And what's happening now? On the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the congregation, let's take a look. In 1992, an idea was born to have a Unitarian Universalist presence on the west side of Albuquerque. First Unitarian, the large congregation in town, put up money for this experiment, and some of their members agreed to start a congregation in the Rio Rancho area. On November 10, 1996, a special service was held and a charter was signed making UU Westside an official member of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Rhoda Anklovic and her husband Joe were charter members.
The minister at that time over there challenged us to start a new group, and we were all younger, had more energy and ideas, and took the challenge, and that's how this all got started.
One of the first visitors to the group was Lisa Silva.
I walked in the door and was greeted with wonderful excitement and joy and happiness by Joe and Ro and Eve and Jean and George and Vi and Guy and Glow. And I just went, ah! They all have one syllable names. How am I ever going to remember any of these people? I'll get them all mixed up. But I didn't, and they all turned out to be amazing, wonderful mentors.
The group met in a rented room at the Rio Rancho Jewish Center. Some of the Sunday services were led by lay people, but they also brought in ministers and special speakers. They had a lot of parties for the holidays, a winter blues pizza party, and fun at Easter for the kids. For the first few years, the leadership was all volunteers, but there was a movement to hire a minister. Bob Long was on the board.
I wasn't the only one that wanted a minister, but I was the spark plug for hiring our first minister. I wanted a congregation with a minister.
At the time, there was a new congregation ministry program at the Unitarian Universalist Association, which would pay a substantial part of that minister's salary, as well as other expenses to help the congregation to grow and develop. That's how in 1998, UU Westside got its first minister, Marlon Gilbert.
In all honesty, I think that there was some diversity of opinion about having a preacher hired full time. First off, I think people really valued the intimacy of a small fellowship. Other members of the congregation had come from larger churches and were very comfortable with the idea of a full-time minister because that provided a lot of strengths. You had Sunday services which were planned with a great deal of care. You had someone to take care of the needs of the congregation, pastoral care, to help with marriage ceremonies, with memorial services, with all of the things that we think about when we think about the life of a congregation. There are a lot of really creative and exciting people in the congregation. There were people who were health professionals, nurses, physicians. There were folks who were teachers, both in the local schools and in the universities in Albuquerque. Military veterans, people who'd been officers in the Air Force, in the military. We had a lot of people who worked in the national labs, particularly the Sandia lab. So we had really bright physicists and engineers and technicians. We had successful businessmen, including a millionaire, so we had the very vibrant group of people there.
From the very beginning, there was a strong women's group at the congregation. At first, they called themselves the Hat a Month Club because they were making hats to donate to one of the homeless organizations in the city. But they didn't like that name, so they chose the name Loose Ends.
And it fit. It's a sewing term, and it fit beautifully with what we were doing and wanted to do. And we took on a new project of mending clothes for Storehouse West. That lasted for many years.
Over time, the Loose Ends group raised a great deal of money for things the congregation needed.
The hymnals that are in our sanctuary, those are gifts from Loose Ends.
They made beautiful quilts to auction off and raise funds. And they always pitched in to host special events like stewardship dinners.
One of the early stories of the congregation involved the women who put on the calendar a date for a congregational work day. I think to do cleaning and painting on the room that we had rented. And unbeknownst, the men had also set up a date for hiking in the wilderness same day. Neither would budge. The women wouldn't change their date, the men wouldn't change. So the women wound up painting and the men wound up hiking. Well, it so happened, they went hiking on a mesa way out, but they got lost. And a thunderstorm came up and they got drenched. There was no cell phone connectivity, so they couldn't call anybody to get help. They finally drug in late that evening, after dinner, and soaking wet, and they all showed up, and the women were, we could have used your help painting. And the men, that became one of the stories that people laughed and teased each other about.
There were quite a few children in the congregation at that time, and the members wanted to have more space for a religious education program.
Gene Jays discovered the current building was for sale, and he got a bunch of us together to come up with loans to enable purchase of the building.
Construction of the West Wing began in 2002.
We paid a contractor to make the excavation for the walls of the new one, and but then a bunch of us were out there nailing down floorboards.
We would be out there on the weekends. I think there were like 20 of us. I was out there hammering nails on the deck, and a lot of us were out there.
Members of the congregation also worked at building a labyrinth at the new property.
The congregation, I think, in many ways was a haven or a refuge or a social center for a lot of folks who are healing. There were people who came from very conservative religious traditions and had left fundamentalist churches when they were young adults or teenagers. And they very honestly carried some wounds from some of the ways that they were reared and brought up. And the Unitarian congregation was a breath of fresh air.
The original vision of the staff of the new congregation ministry program was that UU Westside would become another large congregation of 600 to 800 members.
And I think that was a vision shared by some members of the UU congregation. Other people in the congregation very much valued the intimacy, the smallness of the congregation, and the idea of the congregation growing rapidly was not appealing.
Bob Long served as the treasurer of the congregation for several years.
My hair is fairly gray, as you can see, and we always came up with a deficit. And I don't know how we made it through, but somehow we did. We got some gifts now and then that helped. And, I think some of the initial loans were forgiven. Yeah, it was as treasurer, it was difficult because the books didn't balance.
I think for a lot of people, the great strength of the congregation was that it provided a social support, a place where you made new friends, a place where people took care of each other. And I think the UU Westside congregation did a very good job of doing that. We had members from time to time who had emotional problems or really quirky personalities. And the congregation embraced them and cared for them.
Lisa Silva can testify to the caring of the congregation. One year, she broke her leg in February, and later that year, she lost her job. Members of the congregation pitched in to help.
One of them came over and told me after the fact that UU Westside had held like a garage sale, rummage sale, bake sale combo and raised money and brought me all the proceeds from that. I had no idea. I just burst into tears. It was several $100s they brought me. Yeah, that was community and the sharing and caring that it was just amazing to me.
One of the important steps that UU Westside took was to become an official welcoming congregation, which meant committing to the inclusion of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. This was 2004, and it was still a live political issue. So they organized meetings and panel discussions and Sunday services.
People could ask questions about, well, what's it like to be a gay boy? What's it like to be a lesbian? Do you really get discriminated against? And what do you mean you can't get married? And what do you mean they're still discriminating against you? Aren't those discriminations things of the past? For one of the services, we gave everyone a pink triangle. Some people put it on their name tags, and some people put it on their clothes. And the idea was to talk to people about your pink triangle. So some people went out to the workplace. They weren't gay, but they had a pink triangle on. And people engaged in conversations with people in the community, spreading the word of what it means to know people who are gay and lesbian.
UU Westside not only became an official welcoming congregation in 2005, every year members have joined in Albuquerque's Pride Parade. It's an important event for the congregation. UU Westside also voted to become a green sanctuary.
It was a big day in UU Westside's history to even think about a green sanctuary. It was a look at what we as congregants do for green, for environment, what's the church doing, and what can we do in the wider community to influence the environmental impact that we all have. We did newsletter articles saying, here's something you might not have tried. And one of our favorites was vinegar to clean everything. Vinegar to clean the floors and clean the bathrooms in West Side. So they were pretty progressive at that time.
There was also a focus on building leadership in the congregation. In honor of her husband, Rhoda Danklevic created an endowment fund that would send members of the congregation to UU Leadership School.
Joe had been a leader in this congregation when it first started, and his work at Sandia Laboratories was in leadership training. He was very good at it. I always envied his skills. It dawned on me one day that an endowment fund could be a way of that continuing long after he was gone.
And for me, it was a wonderful week, the most amazing week of learning more about my denomination, of learning more about myself, and learning more about leadership.
Marlon Gilbert resigned in 2005, and Dale Arning became the interim minister. But Dale had to leave after a year because his wife became very ill. In 2006, Elizabeth McMaster became part-time interim minister, and UU Westside began an official search for a new full-time minister. In 2007, Stephen Finney was called to be sitting minister of the congregation. One of the important things that happened was the creation of the West Side Forum, a series of talks on a variety of subjects open to the entire community.
I used to go over there for those, and I loved those.
The congregation also held an educational program on end-of-life issues, which was open to the wider community. The program included information about preparing wills and health directives, but it also had a humorous skit about the issues. The labyrinth was an important part of congregational life. Here the members are walking it as part of Don and Joanne Becker's wedding. Donna Johnston and her husband Gary created a second, larger labyrinth on the UU West Side property.
And sometimes we will use it in some of our ceremonies, and that is a really lovely way to connect. We are blessed with this beautiful place out in the natural part of the desert with perfect views in every direction.
A drumming group was formed, and drumming continued to be an important activity for the congregation. Some members of UU West Side are humanists, others are Jewish, others through the years have been Buddhist or Christian. And there's always been a strong presence of those who believe in earth-centered spirituality. Unitarian Universalism has an organization called CUPS, the Covenant of UU Pagans, and UU Westside has a chapter called Moon Spirit CUPS. The group leads Sunday services on pagan holidays and holds rituals at significant points of the year. There are educational sessions, but there's also dancing, and often other members of UU Westside have joined in the dance. The holidays around Christmas were always celebrated at UU Westside. People decorated the sanctuary, and there was a gift exchange, always with laughter and the chance of ending up with a rubber chicken in a beautifully wrapped box. There were other activities during the year. The Loose Ends group took trips together like going on the Rail Runner to Santa Fe. There was a second women's group that met for discussions, and some of the women took a trip together to Ghost Ranch, hiking and walking the labyrinth there. Even while all these good things were happening, there were rumblings of dissatisfaction in the congregation. Here's Laurel Anderson, who had just been elected president of the board.
I was elected in 2011 in the middle of a crisis. It was touched off by a decision to pull back on Joys and Concerns.
Joys and Concerns was a part of the Sunday service in which people were given the microphone to express briefly the joys and concerns in their hearts, and a candle was lit for each one. Unfortunately, people were no longer brief, and it was taking up a big chunk of the service. The board decided to do away, at least temporarily, with the Joys and Concerns section, and the decision was announced by the minister without any previous warning. There was backlash not only against the board, but against the minister. Several people left. It was a very painful time.
People were very, very distressed. After some time of conversation, we went on. However, we lost several people as a result of that conflict. At the same time, we were losing our minister. He was retiring due to health reasons. And we had another crisis in that we had to decide where we were going as a congregation. I think most of us wanted some kind of guidance and some kind of leadership, and did not feel that we could survive as a fellowship. So we voted and decided to look for a consulting minister. We found one amongst our congregation. Carole Eagleheart was a minister and was willing to help us out at a crucial moment, and she became our consulting minister.
I had been at UU Westside for nearly a decade. I'd served as the music director, and every year I presented several sermons. I agreed to take on the ministry for 1 year, and the congregation ordained me in 2014. The theme for that year was May All Be Well, and we started a gentle fitness program and workshops such as how to prepare gluten-free food. Finances were tight, but luckily, St. Paul's United Church of Christ had just sold their building and they were looking for a place to rent.
It saved us because their rent helped us get through that year.
I had seen Nancy Hitt in action at an interfaith service, and I was struck with how creative she was. I immediately began working to get her involved in UUWC.
The first thing I was asked was, gee, since my primary theological focus was on peace and peaceful relationships with other people, could I put together a workshop for the Unitarian congregation because they were having a lot of trouble talking to each other in a peaceful manner? To which I blithely said, sure, we could do that. And so we did. And I frankly thought that would be the end of it. It was delightful, but I was not a Unitarian. I am an ordained American Baptist minister. And then I was approached and asked, gee, would I like to consider being the interim minister here? And quite frankly, I thought it was a joke, and I laughed. By the third time I was being taken out for coffee or lunch or something and asked the same question, it suddenly dawned on me that it was a serious question. Here I am, almost 7 years later, and it's been quite an interesting ride. We basically learned together what worked for this congregation in particular as a very specific group of Unitarian Universalists.
The services have been dynamic and full of energy, often with colorful decorations in the sanctuary. And the religious education classes were stimulating. One of the most intriguing classes was watching episodes of Little Mosque on the Prairie and exploring how Muslims have been stereotyped since 9/11. One interesting development in the last several years was the creation of an animal ministry. Bramcast Hecht began presenting an animal ministry moment in every Sunday service. There were special programs with live animals. There were animal blessing ceremonies, and even large events for the community like the one called Fin, Feather, and Fur. There were various educational booths. Watermelon Ranch brought in rescued dogs to be adopted, and a blood drive was held at the same time. Members of the congregation, meanwhile, were active in political affairs. They carpooled together to demonstrations and showed up together for big rallies. Then the pandemic hit.
So we did not hold services on site for the better part of 1.5 years. So what we did instead was challenging for those of us who are not technologically minded. But we learned how to hold our committee meetings and classes on Zoom. We did theology on tap on Zoom, town hall meetings on Zoom. It was an adventure. There were a few technological glitches here and there, but by and large, it actually worked quite well.
The Sunday services themselves were recorded on video and put on YouTube. It was a challenge, but it offered the chance to include images that wouldn't be possible in a live service. And it inspired the creation of an entire set of daily meditations that were available to members of the congregation on YouTube all during December 2020. One project during the pandemic was the creation of a peace river in front of the building, with members painting rocks with words and symbols and bringing them to add to the rock river. Now that members are allowed back on site with masks, the Social Justice Committee has launched several projects, including a group on racism. Most recently, UU Westside has partnered with the Rio Rancho Feed the Kids backpack program, which provides packages of food for children on Friday afternoons so they won't go hungry on weekends. Also, a program has been started to install and stock little free libraries for children in Rio Rancho and the Albuquerque area. The congregation held a Greet the Sun labyrinth walk early in the morning, to which the whole community was invited. And for the first time in years, members pitched in to hold a giant yard sale, raising more than $1,000.
We are really busy. People are engaged. And I think one of the healthiest things that I notice about our community is our continuing ability to laugh at ourselves.
This year, the members adopted the image of the loom as a symbol for the congregation and what they are weaving together. A service was held in which everyone wove a symbolic ribbon into the loom, even the smallest child.
I think the future looks really good, kind of wide open, but with lots of potential for this congregation to continue to carry on and surprise everybody with what they're doing.
And that is a cause for celebration.
Be on the website?
Oh, we are. We're trying really hard. Whoa! I've been blinded by the light more than one way. However, that was wonderful. I absolutely applaud your applause and thank all of you who worked with Carole to get interviews from way back. I mean, I learned all kinds of stuff. So that was great. I'm hoping right now that I'm going to ask you to stand, because this is the last thing we're going to do. Take your hymnal, and we have chosen as a congregation to dedicate hymn number 318 as sort of our theme song, if you will. That's "We Would Be One." So I'm going to get out of her way, and Carole is going to lead us in that. And then we're going to flip and do our chalice extinguishing, a quick benediction, and then you get coffee and cake.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
318.
Yep.
Yeah.
We will be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to have eyeballs of greater understanding of who we are and what it must is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all our new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which guides our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
Now, if you flip over to the pages, to number 456, and join me in the words to our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May our past bless us with healthy roots. May our present sustain and encourage us in our shared community. And may our future inspire us all to reach for the stars in all that we do. Shalom and blessed be.
Shalom.
Shalom. Now, I'm going to invite you to just stay where you are for a second. We're going to sing Go Now in Peace, which is our traditional ending. And right here, I'm going to put an arbitrary line. So if you're behind Janet or to this side of the room, turn and face that side. And if you're on this side, turn and face this side, so we have some sense of communicating with each other, because we can't hold hands yet. Okay? So, let's go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. And here's where we want you to go. Dana's going to pull the green card out. Leave your hymnal in that. If you're able to fold up your chair and move it out of the way, please do that. And those of you who can at the back of the room, pull those tables out and then gather around them. We'll bring you cake. Coffee's over here once you're settled.